Hi everyone. So following on from my last video about infectious diseases and Chinese medicine, myself and Katie decided to do some field work and get horribly ill. So we were very good all Christmas, and then on New Year's Day we went out to a crowded restaurant because we were starving, and we both picked up something. So I thought it would be an interesting time to talk about an actual case study, Chinese herbal medicine and infectious illnesses in practice, because there's a couple of interesting things that happened. Myself and Katie almost certainly picked up the same virus or bacteria or whatever it was, the same illness. We were around each other all Christmas, we went to the same places, but the way it manifested in each of us was quite different. And this is something Chinese medicine is really good at. It doesn't look at a virus or a bacterium. Every descriptor we have about illness involves the interaction between the systems of the body and the invading pathogen. And it's that interaction we describe in great detail. So there's a few different ways to label this. The TCM, which is a specific discipline, traditional Chinese medicine is not actually a broad term, it refers to a specific style. The TCM version of this would be that I developed wind, damp, cold pathogen, and Katie developed wind, damp, heat. So wind is complicated, but it basically you can think of it as a vehicle for other pathogens in this context. Dampness refers to the kind of heaviness, fatigue, and phlegm production that goes along with infectious illnesses, and then heat or cold describe how they manifest in the body. So we both had some symptom overlap when it comes to the wind aspect of it. We both had headaches, we both had fatigue, we both had sore throats. But when it came to my manifestation, I had, and by the way, if you didn't want to watch a video that goes into great detail about phlegm today, then maybe this one is not for you, but I had very copious, clear-coloured phlegm. Whereas Katie had a small amount of very difficult to shift yellow-coloured phlegm. So we would view my pathology as being cold damp or cold phlegm. So easy to shift, clear, and in great quantities. Whereas one of the attributes of heat is that heat dries fluids. So Katie's phlegm was more difficult to shift because the pathogen became a heat pathogen in her body. It dried the phlegm, and it dried it harder, and it made it harder to shift. Another manifestation is, even though my pathogen is considered a cold pathogen, you still develop fevers. In febrile diseases, hot and cold pathogens don't both lead to fevers, but my fever was quite mild, whereas Katie, manifesting with a wind, heat, damp, her fever was a bit higher. Now, what causes different pathogens, or the same pathogen, to manifest differently in different people? It's mostly down to constitution. Katie runs a bit hotter than I do. You know, she's more prone to heat signs and to heat constitutions, whereas I'm a little bit more deficient and cold and old and worn down by life. So by being able to categorize into these different categories, we were able to prescribe herbs. So Katie went on a batch of herbs and I went on a batch. Now, the other interesting thing about these labelings is it doesn't just describe the illness, and it doesn't just lead you to certain formulas and certain herbal patterns. It also predicts the development of the illness. So we talked about one of the attributes of heat is that it dries fluids. One of the attributes of cold is that it stagnates. It causes things to tighten up. And then over time, what happens with anything that stagnates, the body wants to move. All aspects of the body, all systems of the body basically want to be in constant movement. We live in a state of dynamic equilibrium. When there is stagnation, it's like an engine seizing up, or a piece of machinery overheating. Stagnation leads to heat. So the fact that I still manifested with a cold pathology, my constitution is also a little bit prone to stagnation. The combination of cold and stagnation means I'm highly likely to switch from a cold pathogen to a hot pathogen at a later stage, and that's exactly what happened as well. So these are quite broad categorizations. when it actually comes to prescribing formulas, we one of the great things about Chinese medicine is we have different systems. I talked about the Shanghan Lun in my last video, and the Shanghan Lun was particularly appropriate to me. I was manifesting with cold damage, as the Shanghan Lun would call it. I was manifesting with a Taiyang pathology, so my issues were quite superficial. They were the throat and up. There was nothing in my lungs. I didn't really have much of a cough, a little bit of phlegm. I had what we call aversion to cold and wind, which is differentiated in Chinese medicine. I had stiffness and pain up the back of my neck, and all of these would lead me to something in the Guizhitang or Chaihu Gogentang, or sorry, not Chaihu, the Gogentang formula of Taiyang families from the Shanghan Lun. Now, the Shanghan Lun was not particularly appropriate, in my view, for Katie's manifestation of illness. Katie's pathology went to her lungs very quickly. And so there is another book called the Wenbing, which is the treatise on worm pathologies, which was developed because they found that the Shanghan Lun was not covering all aspects of febrile disease. And this has a system called the 4 levels in it. And basically we were able to pinpoint that Katie's illness was manifesting in what we call the Qi level. So this leads me to another formula family, and I think what I gave her was something like a modification of Jiangqi Huatantang or something like that. The specifics are not that important. That's what the training goes to. But what I want to get across here is that there's a lot of different ways to label illness. There's a lot of different systems we can draw on. And part of being a practitioner is being able to pick and choose from systems that bring you to the formula and the treatment most rapidly. So, I hope you found that interesting. A little insight into the flu season upheaval and the way I try to address it within my own house. It has been a flu season like I've never seen before. I have never handed out so many formulas for colds and flus. So, hopefully we're seeing the end of it now. All right. Like always, I know I kind of fly through these things. I'm talking off the cuff here. Any questions, I would really appreciate people throwing a comment down below or asking me, because I'm sure not everything is perfectly clear. But yeah, thanks for listening.